The Suez Canal has been in the news a fair bit over the last week or so due to a boat named the Ever Given from the Evergreen shipping company getting stuck partway along it. While in this case it seems to have been an accident that caused the trouble, the canal has had a long history of problems. One such event was Operation Musketeer, that kicked off in the latter half of 1956. This was a combined operation between British and French forces to regain control of the canal after the Egyptian president, Gamal Abdel Nasser, announced that he was nationalising the Suez Canal Company, despite it being a joint British-French enterprise which had owned and operated the Suez Canal since its construction back in 1869. Obviously, this did not sit well with France and Britain and their influence on this key point of the world trade stage. Operation Musketeer had three main objectives: capture the town of Port Said at the northern entrance to the canal, then defeat the Egyptian army in the desert, and finally to remove Nasser from power. On the naval side of things, Task Force 345 was deployed, which included aircraft carriers, cruisers, destroyers, frigates, mine layers, minesweepers, and assault ships. As for the airborne side, on the morning of the 5th of November, 688 British paratroopers were dropped onto Al Gamil airfield west of the town of Port Said. The airfield was quickly taken over by the troopers and was secured with just 12 British wounded. With that airfield secured, the remainder of the forces could be landed by aircraft. The same morning, the French also dropped troops. They dropped 500 men in two locations in the south and the east. By the end of the day, the Anglo-French forces were in a position where all they had to do was stop and wait for the seaborne landing the following morning. Those seaborne forces swarmed across Port Said on amphibious vehicles, tanks, and via helicopter. And an interesting side note here is that this was the first time troops were deployed by helicopter in a military operation. So what about the Egyptian side of things? Well, despite being well armed by military aid from the Soviet Union, the Egyptian commanders were inexperienced and the men were ill-trained. They put up a spirited defence though, and in many places hampered progress of the invaders. Ultimately, there was international condemnation of Operation Musketeer, and Britain and France were forced to accept a ceasefire. And on the 7th of November, all fighting stopped. The British and French forces withdrew and were replaced with a United Nations emergency force. In the end, around 45,000 British and 34,000 French troops were involved in Operation Musketeer. In total, 16 were killed and 96 were wounded. 900 Egyptian soldiers were killed and tens of thousands of them were taken prisoner. 1,000 civilians were also killed as a result of the operation. Apart from Billy Joel mentioning it in his song "We Didn't Start the Fire," the event is largely forgotten now on the world stage. The canal itself, however, remains a large part of that world stage, and as we saw in the past week or so, it plays a critical role in the flow of trade all around the world.